Good afternoon and welcome to our Clayton County Library System Seed Library Gardening Workshop. Today we have Miss Cynthia McCreary from UGA Master Gardeners, Fayetteville County, presenting today's workshop on pollinators. Miss McCreary, welcome and thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. I'm going to share my screen. And okay, are we good?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Okay. All right. As I say, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. Today, we're just going to talk about encouraging pollinators and beneficial insects. I think the buzzword right now, everyone wants to encourage pollinators in their yard. It's very attractive to have a lot of things blooming, a lot of things that's just, part of nature. We all want to get back to nature. So let's move on.
Okay, Miss McCreary, we're not seeing your screen.
You're not?
No.
Okay, hold on. Thought I shared my screen. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, now, right? Did you see Zoom?
Yes.
Let me bring up the PowerPoint. Sorry about that. And now you can, right?
There we go. Yes. Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I thought I clicked share. Okay, now apologize. So today we're going to talk about encouraging pollinators and beneficial insects. Why are we talking about insects when most time we think of pollinators as just butterflies and maybe bees and birds? But insects also, believe it or not, is 99% of ecological importance to having a successful pollinator garden. What we have to keep in mind is that pests do not directly harm or help people, but they are essential in the food chain. So when we look at animals like birds and mammals and aquatic life and other insects, we sometimes don't understand how they are able to provide in addition to having a successful pollinator garden. But beneficial insects are a small group that contributes to the natural plant pest control. A lot of people would prefer to use pesticides and chemicals in their gardens. A lot of us may be a little squeamish about the little crawlers that are in our gardens and things. So we feel like they are destroying our plants. But insects, believe it or not, controls the ecological balance of the right amount of insect that provide food for pollinators. So they're not all destructive. Some are, and here are some that you may recognize. There are an important group of predators and parasites, but what they do is feed on the harmful insects that are in your garden. We all know lady beetles, but believe it or not, lady beetles are predators. They eat other insects that will do damage in the garden. We look at the beneficial insects, and they are also what we consider being pollinator insects because we're familiar with those, the bumblebees and moths and butterflies, those type of things. But these are all beneficial insects. So we want to encourage pollinators and beneficial insects in our gardens. You want to choose a variety of ornamental plantings to attract different insects. I have favorite plants, and I'm sure each of you have favorite plants as well. I like to plant things that bloom in every month of the year. So I have season-long nectar and pollen and different things that will attract different pollinators and these beneficial insects all season long. So one of the things you always want to keep in mind, you want to reduce the usage of insects, chemical control. I think most of you are aware that our honeybee population is in a massive decline. The monarch butterfly is in decline because we are overusing all of the all-purpose insecticide. You may use an insecticide to target a specific insect, but believe it or not, it causes additional contact with other or the good pollinators or the good beneficial insects, if you will. So they're starting to put out new chemical restrictions regarding pollinator protection. And so in essence, if you have to use a form of chemical, they are asking now that you do a spot spray other than a blanket spray or covering a whole section of plants. A lot of people feel like organic products don't control chemicals, but the makeup of organic products still can be harmful to the insects. So the buzzword, of course, yes, I'm doing an organic gardening. I don't want to put any chemicals in my to use any chemicals in my garden, but overall, organic products also contain harmful chemicals or harmful products to our pollinators. And if you're going to have to use a chemical, that should be your very last result. So why do we want to do a pollinator garden? Pollinators play a vital role in the survival of our native wildflowers, trees, shrubs, and our other additional plantings, annuals and native plants, butterflies, and that's I think the top of the line pollinator that most people want to attract because they seem harmless, they're very attractive, but they are only second to bees and wasps in their importance in pollination. When you provide habitats, you should be contributing to the well-being of hundreds of species of native plants. Now, some of us don't like bees. Me, for example, I have a very bad allergy to bees, and I carry an EpiPen. And my daughter August fuss with me all the time. You're always in the garden, and there are bees out there all the time, but I don't see them as predators. I don't bother them. They don't bother me, but I have been stung and I've had to end up in the hospital, but it still does not deter me from going out and working in my garden and attracting bees and wasps because I understand that they are important to pollinators. So a pollinator garden goals, we have 3 main goals. And of course, there'll be others that we can talk about. The primary goal of a pollinator garden is to provide nectar from February to November. This is pretty much year round. We have to understand that once spring gets here, that's not the only time we see pollinators. We see pollinators at different seasons in the year, different times of the year. And if we are attracting both the insect as well as the butterflies, which are seasonal, and the bees, which are seasonal, we have to also give, sorry about that, we have to also provide coverage of additional months of the year. The second most important is to plant suitable forages for caterpillars of native butterfly species only. Here in Georgia, the swallowtail butterfly, and we have a couple of others that are only here in the state of Georgia, that we would need to plant specific plants to attract these native butterfly species only. This provides diversity in our pollinator gardens. And of course, it also established a diversified selection of nectar for our pollinators. Other reasons for having a pollinator garden, we need to provide suitable micro habitat, and we'll talk a little bit about this a little later. We want to establish a pesticide-free butterfly habitat. I've kind of alluded to that as well already, in that it is, we don't want to use a lot of pesticides because we want to attract the butterflies. We want to use specific plants to attract specific butterflies and the beneficial insects as well. And of course, one of the main reasons, we want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and we want the garden design to be at least the last thing that we think about, because most times when you go into a pollinator garden, you're going to find just an array of wildflowers and various flowers, and you may think that it's an unkept garden. So this is a layout or a concept, if you will, of a butterfly garden. As you can see, hopefully there, this lays out how you can construct a butterfly garden. You want to have perennials in different areas of the yard because you will attract different pollinators in different sections of your yard. You want to have, for example, on this side, you have tall perennials over here. And on this side of the garden, you just have different perennials that you'll have. You need a moist area. There's always a need for having a water source for the pollinators that you are attracting. And of course, seasonal, you can't have color year round. So you want to have annuals that will provide you color in the winter, as well as annuals that will provide color in the summer and spring. And you want to have a foraging area. That's where your beneficial will go out into an area that's a natural habitat, if you will, that they can forage for their own food, and it allows them to survive the way that nature have built them to survive. We don't always provide the right combination of plants or the types of plants that we have in our garden. So if we don't have that in our yard, they will have to go out and forage for survival. So that's why you would want a place that would be left as close to nature as possible. Now, this is a list of plants and the number. That's what's key to a successful pollinator garden. You have to have different heights, as I indicated early on. You want 2 feet tall. You want to structure the height, the growing or the final size of your plants to be at different levels in the garden. That provides a landing pad, if you will, for your pollinators. Also, the number of plants that you will have in your yard will, a lantana or Miss Huff lantana, it grows into a 9 feet tall, a 9 square foot tall plant. So if you have at least 3 of those in your yard, you're going to cover a total of 27 square feet. That's a lot of area, but a lantana will is a definite plant that will attract pollinators. So you have other plants here, the phlox and the salvias, dianthus, asters, and all of those. So here you can see, in just this garden size of 325 square feet, you're going to need at least 74 different plants. And these different plants are in various colors. And that will cover almost all of your yard. Here, there's a 322 square feet of space. in a 325 square foot garden. So that is a lot of space. So that gives you an idea of how large you need to have a growing area of pollinator plants to attract pollinators. And here again, as I've kind of alluded to, as you can see in the picture, you have plants that won't grow any taller than 2 feet or less. And you have other plants that will be 2 to 3 feet tall. And then you have plants that are going to be 4 to 6 feet tall. Again, allowing you to have a landed area for your pollinators to visit. So if you want to have a strong pollination of pollinators and your beneficial insects, your garden has to provide more than just a few a few flowers. The following you must also have in your garden. You need nectar sources, and you need multiple nectar sources, the different types of forage plants. You've got to have soil salt sources. These are different things like our body needs salt. There's different elements in the soil that feed the plants that will give the pollinators what they need. You gotta have to have a resting area. For example, if you have milkweed in your yard and you're attracting monarchs, we know that monarch fly from South America, and you think about the trek that they have to fly over. A lot of times they will need resting places, and even pollinators and beneficials that fly from the north to the south in the winter. They need an area to recoup and rest. So you want to have that open area for warm, for them to be able to roam and rest. And of course, having that water source that I talked about. A lot of us sometimes have bird baths in our yards or flowing fountains and things like that. So what do you do for nectar sources? Both your annuals and your perennials are a great source of nectar. Your non-native ornamentals, some people are into natives, and some people don't quite understand what constitutes a native plant. I have a neighbor that has a gorgeous yard, and I stopped by one day to speak with her about how beautiful her yard her yard is. And I asked her, I said, do you have any native plants in your yard? And she said, I don't even know what a native plant is, but basically a native plant is a plant that, and there's two ways of looking at it. Is it a plant that was here before the settlers came, or is it a plant that has adapted to our area for a number of years and have learned to survive here? So having a non-native plant is certainly a source of nectar, as well as the native plants that we know. We need to have native trees and shrubs, things like rotten fruit, artificial feeders. We have a lot of people that choose to feed the birds and the the honeybees, and of course the tree sap is another source of nectar. You want to have a sunny space for soaring and for the beneficials to roam. Hummingbirds need space to fly, and if anyone has watched a hummingbird, it will fly and it will hesitate, and they will not stay very long. They swoop in and they take refuge, they feed, they drink of moisture or take in water, and then they're gone. They don't stay very long, but you can attract hummingbirds, and hummingbirds are attracted to bright, brilliant colors like reds and yellows. So if you want to attract hummingbirds, you want to provide more of the reds and yellows in your garden. So beneficial insects are essential as well. If you have not exposed your garden to any types of pesticides, your beneficial insects will build up to a point where the insect pest is in control. To say that in another way, the balance of nature will take care of the insects that may be damaged or harmful to your plants in your garden. Beneficials will never kill all of the pests because that's their food source. So you can, if you reduce the pest population to a point where the pest does not affect the health of the garden, then you're going to have a problem with having a successful beneficial garden. Okay. Bumblebees are also essentials. A lot of us, I know, are frightened of bees, or we think about the sting that they cause. And you're going to have bumblebees if you're going to have a pollinator garden. And as I've indicated, I'm allergic to bees myself, but I do weigh carefully working in my yard. I'm always out there working, and I'm working and I work around bees all the time. The bumblebee, the yellow jacket, that's the one that I'm most allergic to. But I watch for them, and I try to be careful and not swat at them. Usually bees will leave you alone if you leave them alone. But remember what I said initially, bumblebees are the #1 pollinator, and they are a good environmental indicator for insects. If you see bumblebees, that's indicative that you have a very healthy garden. So as you can see in the photographs here, you will see them in your garden, but they're more than likely going to light on a plant or a flower, because they are taking the nectar out of the flower itself. When you swat at the bumblebees or the yellow jackets or the other bees, they see that as an attack. But so I more or less just let them do their thing, and I just do my thing. So here are some plants to consider for if you want to build a pollinator garden or butterfly garden, if you will. You want to also always consider the chronological and duration of the bloom. Remember, I had indicated that you can have things bloom all year round based on when you plant. You can, when you purchase plants, or if you have pass along plants, you want to consider the fact when they're blooming seasons, and you can plant them at different times during their blooming season to provide them a time of maturity at different times of the year or different seasons of the year. You can have spring bloomers, but there are early spring bloomers. We have mid-season, mid-spring bloomers, and late spring bloomers, and the same thing in the summer. So you can make selection based on how long they will bloom and what season of the year they will bloom. The color of the bloom is important. As indicated, the reds, the yellows, and even blues are your violets are bright colors. This is what you want to plant in multiples to draw in all of your pollinators. You want to do nidiferous type of plants. These are plants that are a community survivor. They enhance each other, and they provide shelter for your pollinators. Invasive will do the same thing. The thing about invasive, you would have to keep them in control because they can take over a garden. They can become hard to manage. For example, mint we all know that mint is one of those plants that will take over a garden because it's a prolific grower, and it just spreads. One of the ways to combat that, if you plant your mint in a pot, and then put that pot in the ground, then it contains the root of the plant. You want to look at the maintenance that's required. The more you deadhead or you pinch off dead blooms, it will allow your plant to continue to bloom. So, and it will extend your blooming season for your plant. So these are some just considerations to think about when you are making your selection. Most perennial plants are established in the early fall. We do that because, and we do this with trees, with shrubs as well. Fall is the best time to plant anything because it gives the plant time to develop good, strong roots, and it gives the plant a chance to get well established. So the other reason why the second best time to plant would be in the spring. You don't want to plant anything in the summer because of the harshness of our summers, and it makes a plant, a newly planted anything, difficult to survive. So annuals should be planted as soon after the last average frost day. So once we find out that whether you follow the Farmer's Almanac or you follow your own sense of coolness, I know we've had some strange weather lately, but one of the things I always do, I go to georgiaweather.net, and that gives me the ground temperature. Once the ground temperature is above 65 degrees, then I know it's safe to do my spring planting. Some people just rely on Easter. They don't plant until Good Friday. So whatever your option is, you always want to plant after the last day of frost. So I want to just remind you to remember to plant your garden, prepare your garden soil. You want to till it, you want to add your amendments. One of the things we advocate as master gardeners and as we help people with their garden, always do a soil test before you plant anything. Doing a soil test will help your plant. It gives you a report of the condition of your soil. If you are planting, let's just say azaleas, for example. Azaleas are acidic soil. They require acidic soil, and if they require morning sun. So if you plant azalea in alkaline soil, it's not going to do well. If it does not have enough calcium, it's not going to do well. So a soil test will give you the basic of whatever you're trying to plant, whether your soil is conducive with the right nutrients in the soil. If you already have a perennial bed, you may need to dig it up and reestablish your bed every 3 years or so. Typically, we have to divide plants every 3 to 5 years. So that will entail you having to dig your bed up or reestablish your bed or plant new things. Some things may have died out. Regardless of what you think, nothing lives forever. Plants even has a time limit, and sometimes they just decline just because they've reached their life expectancy. You want to fertilize your beds in April, May, and June with a 10-10-10 fertilizer. 10-10-10 is an equal balanced fertilizer. It doesn't add much more of the nitrogen, phosphorus, or whatever is needed in your garden. Your soil test result will tell you if you need anything stronger to establish your bed. And again, remember to deadhead or pinch off to keep your blooms prolific, and you want to continue them as long as the plant will during its blooming season. So here are some examples of beneficial attractors. These are plants that will attract all our beneficial insects and will attract certain pollinators as well. So I'm not a big fan of yellow because of yarrow. I'm sorry, yarrow is a plant that I can't seem to contain, but they are prolific bloomers. Coreopsis is another one. And of course, Rudbeckia is an excellent plant for planting in your garden. Here are some other plants. As you can see, as most of them are yellow, we have a few that are purple or lavender in color. But remember, your bright colors will what will draw pollinators to your yard. And these are common pollinator species. We've talked about the bees, and there are different types of bees and wasps. I remember as a child, the mud dobblers, or I used to call them dirt dobblers, even the housefly. And I know none of us care to have a housefly in the house, but outside, they are a great pollinator species. So again, this is why you don't want to attack in a blanket format using a pesticide, because it kills a lot of other pollinators. And here, close up of what a small bee looks like, and the bumblebee, which is always the black and white. And these are other bees. There are all types of bees, but these are all great pollinators. The different flies, close up of those, and your different wasps. Just be careful if you are afraid of bees and wasps, just don't attack them. They won't attack you. And here we go with some additional pollinator attractors. The color, again, the lavenders, and here are some plants. The catmint walker's low. The guara is a is a great plant. It's a passionate bush. These are different plants that you can use. Salvia, of course, is a great plant to plant in multiples that will provide that rich purple color. And here are additional flowers, your coleus, your coreopsis, and you can get them in different colors. The Brazilian verbena is one, and of course your Rudbeckia or your black-eyed Susan. These will grow in multiples and they will grow tall. You can also plant herbs. Again, herbs are multi-purpose. We use them in our cooking, in our kitchens, but they provide a great pollinator habitat. They provide ornamental interest in your garden. And again, they make great fragrance and a lot of people use the different herbs for medicines as well. Cover crops, if you're not familiar with cover crops, these are plants that you plant over if you have a bare area or you have dug up your flower bed and you want to maintain the integrity of the soil. We are advised to plant a cover crop, and cover crops could be anything from beans to crimson clover. There's a white clover, different grasses that you would plant. But if you have a large area like this, I would recommend that you use a cover crop to maintain that integrity of your garden. So the benefits of a cover crop, and remember now, it's just like mulch. It reduces the runoff and reduces erosion of the soil while you don't have anything planted there. It decreases soil crusting, which means that top layer will get extremely hard, and it increases the rate of water infiltration. It allows water to go to absorb deeper into the soil. It promotes root growth, and it encourages soil organism and nutrient recycling, which means the nutrients that's in the soil is not dissipated out of the soil because the soil would not be bare. And that improves the soil structure for when you are ready to do your planting. And of course, it always increases organic matter into your soil. And during the off season, it provides food for your pollinators. So today, just to take home this message for this program, your pollinators are essentials for food and seed and development. You want to do the IPM, which is integrated pest management practices. You can get in touch with your local extension office with any help with that. The recommendation of what to use when you are trying to control the pest in your garden. I hope you've understood that it's very important to not to do a blanket pesticide to get rid of pests that you think are detrimental to your garden or to your plants. But the integrated pest management practices can help you develop a way of controlling the pests that you do have if you have an overpopulation and you don't have the beneficial insects coming in to maintain a safe level of pests in your garden. Again, remember, beneficial insects are the best way to reduce the population of harmful insects in your garden. By having the beneficial insect, you're providing the food source and the shelter for all of the beneficial insects, for them to survive, to maintain the pests that may be a detriment to your pollinator plants. And so if you, most of this information you can get from the University of Georgia. There are publications, but you can go out to the UGA website and find these documentation if you're interested. And any of these, or like I said, contact your Clayton County Extension Office, or you can reach us at the Fayette County Extension Office for any information that you may need. And so with that, are there any questions? Okay, Dana, is there any questions in the chat? If not, you turn your mic on and ask directly. If not.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions on YouTube. If anyone's in Zoom and wants to ask a question, you can go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the website to find out about the last frost? All right, that is www.georgia. Oh, I've just forgot it. Oh, I know about GeorgiaWeather.net. www.georgiaweather.net is the website that you can go. It may not give you the last day of frost because it covers certain areas. You will, when you go to that website, it'll send you to the closest weather monitoring station where you are. For example, I'm in Fayette County. Peachtree City is the closest one to me. But if you're in a different part of the state or a different area, you'll probably be sent to a different site that will, weather monitoring site that will give you something different. So that's why I use www.georgiaweather.net because it's closest to where I live. Are there any other questions?
Okay, Ms. Cynthia, it doesn't appear that we have any more questions. So we're going to go ahead and close the program out at this time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to remind everyone that our next gardening program will be May 19th at noon, and we will be discussing pest control. And I would like to thank you, Ms. Cynthia, for coming out and talking to us today. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I appreciate you all asking. Hopefully it was beneficial to you as well.
Yes, ma'am, we got some great information.
All right. Thank you.
All right.